So next, we're gonna get through more bad news, unfortunately, but that's just the way it goes sometimes. Um, I felt like I had to talk about it because I'm a big Pokemon fan and I love Pokemon Go, and I'm sure that everybody now is aware of the Pokemon Go Fest being a disaster. I hope that's an accurate word to describe it because I wasn't there, but everyone knows about it by now. um, so Niantic, oh, voice crack, woo! Niantic held their first Pokemon Go Fest in Chicago, and the tickets were pretty cheap at first. I think they were only like $20, but then everybody bought them really quickly. It was to be held at Grant Park in Chicago, and a lot of scalpers were selling them for a couple $100s. It was pretty anticipated event. Pokemon Go is not dead, people. Just because you don't see those people always walking outside does not mean it's dead. I remember when they said it was like after a month. They're like, "Oh, Pokemon Go lost 10% of its user base." And I was like, out of what was it? I can't remember. I don't know which one sounds more reasonable, but it was like 200 million people downloaded that. I'm like, 10%, that's 20 million. They still have 180 million people playing it. So don't listen to that bullshit. That's Pokemon Go. Well, they probably don't have 180 million people playing right now. I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying there's always a lot of people who are like, "Oh, it's so sad to hear about the death of Pokemon Go." And it's like, what are you talking about? That game still makes a shit ton of money and still has a huge player base. But anyways, I'm off topic. The point is that it was a big event. There was a lot of people there. Some people from around the country, maybe even from around the world, because it was only in one spot, and it was the first ever Pokemon Go Fest. They advertised like legendaries and like catching a really like good Pokemon and rare ones or whatever. And the game wasn't working for most of the time. And I find this very sad and unfortunate, but also kind of in a what should be an awakening, a wake up call for Niantic if they haven't figured this out yet. But we'll get to that in a minute. So Niantic, during the event, eventually they gave in, after people booed the CEO off stage. They chanted, "We can't play." Um, and I feel so bad because I love Pokemon Go. I don't want to see it fail like this. I really don't. Um, they even reported to IGN just a few days ago and said they were horrified by just being on stage and being there and like the reaction. And I'm like, yeah, you piss off a lot of people by making them travel to play a game that doesn't work. And I could understand technical difficulties, but once again, we'll get to that in a minute. And now another news story just came out that there are people who attended the event who are now going to attempt to sue Niantic. I don't know if they can get away with that. I think they're attempting to sue them over advertising something that they couldn't provide because it didn't work. But I mean, I almost don't want to say like it's serious because it is a game, but people did like travel and shit for this, you know. Um, I I think that in terms of people's financial situation and such, there's for a lot of people like, yeah, this was serious. Obviously the world's not going to end, you know. But regardless, Niantic should have been prepared for this. I don't here's another thing that another game that I love, but it's just like that one thing that pisses me off. Kind of a similar situation to Splatoon as well, just considering that they both had plenty of time to figure this out. But we're not going to get into Splatoon again. But basically, Niantic you should have had plenty of time to fix this game. I know that, like, this is the first time you've had an event where there's a lot of people, and I mean, wasn't it like couple 10,000 in one area, and that didn't help. The servers were slammed. People's cell phones weren't even accessing the game because it was so bad in that one area that they expanded the radius by like 2 miles. So people who didn't even pay to get into the event were actually able to benefit from it, possibly, if they just happened to whip out their phones and play Pokemon Go within a 2-mile radius, which I'm sure there was probably people outside of the event playing. You know, you see that sometimes at events like that. People who couldn't get in decide to enjoy it as much as they can outside of the stadium, or in this case the park, whatever. But so yeah, that's one thing, that this was the first time they had all these people in like one spot doing this. But I think a lot of the issues that were going on can still be attributed to issues that have been problems with Pokemon Go since day one. Server issues, weird glitches, and just the design, a lot of like UI fuck ups and stuff. Obviously here the whole problem was people just couldn't play. That was the main problem. So this has nothing to do with anything like glitchy or whatever. But the point being is that Pokemon Go has had when it first came out, it had a plethora of problems. And people didn't care at the time because it was free, and Niantic was trying to just kind of smoothly sway it into the world, and everybody just thought, oh, they're going to fix it, don't worry. I have been playing Pokemon Go since day one, like minute one. I downloaded it right away. Not that that really matters, but just so you have an idea of like how long I've been doing this. And I've been playing it on and off since then. I usually play it for like a couple weeks, and then I'll give it a couple weeks break, and then I'll, rinse and repeat. But the one thing that always peeved me is every time they were like, here's this New Year's event. Here's the Johto Pokemon. They're here. And most of the time it was like, great. When are you going to fix the game? Because, I mean, I really want the Johto Pokemon and stuff. I like the events. I like the Fire and Ice event. That was a good one. But I could still tell the game had problems. Not nearly as bad as, day one. They fixed it a little. But the first year should have primarily been used to finishing / fixing the fucking game. And I think that it all culminated to this one moment, and I don't want to be like they deserved it, but I'm not surprised by what happened just based on the decisions that Niantic has made within the past year for Pokemon Go in terms of its updates. Choosing to hold things like events and stuff as opposed to fixing the game, more than likely because it's easier to make... I would assume it's easier to make money, like when the event's going on, a lot more people get involved in the game and such, and it's also probably just easier than fixing the game. So, I feel bad for them. I really do, but at the same time, it is a little bit like they kind of brought this upon themselves. I just have a message, like, please, Niantic, it's time. Fix the game. I don't even want to... I do want to see Hoenn Pokemon, but I don't want to see Hoenn Pokemon until you fix the game. Please.